This is RSBANDB Update, episode 652, the 2017 Clip Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final episode of RSBANDB Update for the year of 2017. 2017 has been completed, and oh boy, what a year it has been. RuneScape-wise, RSBANDB Update-wise, and, of course, everything that the wonderful co-hosts of RSBANDB Update have contributed this year, and that's what we're here to celebrate today. The year that was for RSBANDB Update with the 2017 Clip Show. And to host this year's Clip Show is Sirion. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is your first Clip Show?
Yes, so, it's a bit of it has always been a bit of a secret wish to me to come on a Clip Show. So, thanks for having me. That's going to be great.
Yes, so this year we have 56 clips. That's slightly more than last year's. We have ones covering almost every episode from the year. We also have a good number of clips from almost everyone who was on the podcast this year. So you'll pretty much get a nice summary of who was on the show this year. And some of these clips were put in the show, and some of them were from pre-show, and some were from the middle of the show that were edited out. So you're actually getting a bit of a behind-the-scenes image here as to what went on this year for RSBANDB Update, and some of the clips are just absolutely hilarious. So that's what we're here to celebrate today. And in case you're wondering, you might have seen on the iTunes tag or the whichever podcatcher you use that this episode carries an explicit tag, just because there is no editing and there could be the occasional thing that might be a little bit not clean, even though that's how we try and be most times on this podcast. So,
Is it just you being lazy for this episode, or?
Oh no, not at all. I mean, I could do that for the rest of the year. Then I think that would be considered lazy. But
fair enough.
I mean, when you look at some of the names of some of these clips here, you kind of get an idea as to why that is the case. So,
I mean, I think it's clear that pre and post show are maybe not always as clean as the episodes itself. Like the beeps don't come out of nowhere. So
that's right. So we're going to begin with episode 601, which was the first episode in January. We just got back from the Christmas break, and this episode was also when I was recovering from being sick over last year's Christmas break. And this episode featured the Memorial to Guthics update and was hosted by myself, Mr. Bistro, and Tanis. And the clip is entitled Coughing Fit. Designed with love by Jagex in Cambridge. That should be their new slogan.
I think they're putting lots of love into it.
Exactly.
Maybe.
He's getting worse.
I gotta make a note.
Pause for editing.
Yeah, I gotta go get more water. I normally don't. Okay, you guys figure out how we're gonna end out this segment, and then move on to the questions, please, while I'm gone. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, poor Shane.
I know.
I don't know. I was gonna say something on the slim tabs too, but I didn't.
And this was in the process where we were discussing the very early pictures of what the bank rework might look like, and how it felt at the time there was a little bit too much being focused on from the community side of things. So granted, we didn't get the bank rework this year. It's been put forward to 2018, and that work is still progressing behind the scenes. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up is episode 602, and this clip is entitled Bath Time with RSBANDB. It was in response to a listener question from Colton, I believe. But there is a huge list here on Wikipedia of the actual Starburst flavors that are available, including such things as kiwi banana, lime, mango melon, mixed berry. So, pina colada from 1988. So they definitely did have their experimenting with all these. So, all right. Number 2, how long is a normal shower, and how hot or cold do you prefer the water? I'll let you lead on this one.
I'd say my normal showers are just under 10 minutes.
All right.
I think that's normal. And I have I don't know. I don't like scalding hot. I like a nice warm temperature that helps me wake up in the morning. That's as vague as you could possibly be, but I'm not the person that
Takes a
looks at the
thermometer
temperature
with you.
gauge.
I'd say probably 10 to 15 is ideal. 20 on the long end, but I mean, at that point, you're just wasting water, right?
Yeah.
And how hot? I would say probably hot, but not scalding, because I don't know. It seems as though if you're anywhere here out and about and it's cold and it is cold, I mean, it's cold to a degree inside, but you have the heat on, but it still is cold. So you definitely do need it to be warm. So I think the hotter it can be in the winter, the better. So and, this is from somewhere where it gets really cold. So, I mean, you either got to dry off completely or hope that it stays warm enough that it heats you up, right? So,
Sure.
I've never understood the ability for people to go fully cold in the summer. I don't get that. Like 100% cold.
It's healthy.
Yeah.
I don't
okay.
do it, but it's supposed to be healthy for you.
All right. There's also the idea of a good long bath if you need a time to think. I think is also good as well.
Oh, bathing in your own filth.
Well, I mean, you do wash off eventually, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So
I just don't like the idea of that.
okay. That was episode 602. We love coal. Temperatures on showers and the merits of shower times.
You get the weirdest questions on RSBANDB. Maybe you should at some point do like a compilation of like the weirdest questions you've ever gotten. That being said, what is the weirdest question you ever got on the show?
The weirdest question was back in the day, I think around episode 100 or so, when we were asked what kind of underwear that we wear.
Oh, I don't think I need to know that.
Exactly.
No, that's not.
So that was way back in the day, and lots of people used to ask really weird questions. And they've gotten less weird over time. But I think if we want to talk about weird, we can continue on with episode 602, where Mr. Bistro talks about clams.
Shane, you're going to be one of those people that puts a clam up their ass.
Excuse me? I'm sorry?
A clam up their ass.
I don't understand that.
Oh, so you don't shit anymore. Just
Okay.
there.
Did you really just go there on my show?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know if that's medically safe.
No, it's not, but it's actually something that people have been talking about.
How's that for weirdness on RSBANDB updates, Arion?
That's up there on the scale of pretty normal to weird, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It is. But anyways, also on 602, I brought that episode back to Earth when we were talking about ways to solve a Rubik's Cube, and we delivered a 1-2 punch with Mr. Bistro on a potential way to solve a 3x3.
Long left turn. He then went up by taking the correct left turn. He continued going up fueled his car, then went up the wrong way by not fueling his car.
Huh. And I assume you do Rubik's Cubes often then.
No, I solved the 3x3 3 times today, but that's
okay.
from looking at the algorithms. So I'm coming up with these stories so I can kind of memorize them and not have to look at things anymore. Yeah, so anyway, with the 3x3 Rubik's Cube, there's only like 4 steps I need to memorize. The final step is super easy, and so are the first couple steps. So,
All right. Good.
Yeah.
Does it count if you take the cubes off and rearrange the colors to make them solved?
No.
But that's a solution. You get to the intended result.
That's not in the spirit of the game. You of all people should respect that.
Hey, but if you're looking for a solution and a path to an object, right? Why not take the shortest route? That's the cheater in me coming out, I guess. Because
This reminds me of someone I met in college who made their own Rubik's cubes, and like they would assemble the whole thing from like 3D printed parts, and then before they put the colored stickers on, they would just turn and toss it around because they could. Because as soon as they would put them on, these would be really complex things, right? He could not solve them himself, so like as soon as he put the stickers on, he had to be really careful not to screw it up.
and see, that's the thing. That's the thing I said. Is it solving a Rubik's Cube if you have a bunch of colored stickers and you replace them?
Not really. Not really.
Oh.
But yeah, it's really funny because I recognize this exactly. Like the first couple of steps and the last couple of steps of a Rubik's Cube are the easiest bits. Like it's
Yeah.
the middle part that's
Exactly.
hard. So.
Exactly. All right, we're moving on to episode 603 right now at the tail end of January 27th. This episode was myself and Mr. Bistro, and the clip title is Run Around Skins. All right. So that's the Dress Chain 12088 competition done for 2017. That's good, because, I don't do Fashionscape. Do you?
No, I normally run around in my skins.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, in that case, what have you been doing in addition to that on RS? And Sirion, I think you have some experience with that on RuneScape as well.
Yeah, I don't know how that came to be at some point, but it happened, and now it's a thing.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, the results of the Dress Chain 12088 competition, I am still wearing that outfit today on RuneScape. Well, not right now because I got the Christmas outfit there, but nonetheless. All right, so also on 603, we had a interruption of sorts based on some sound effects that I decided to make when I was critiquing. Well, I'll let you guys listen to the clip. Stop.
Yeah. And anyone who hasn't watched Force Awakens, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a character named Ben who I got really mad at because the name Ben was supposed to be given to the opposite sibling from a different family, but still in the same family tree. Oh, it was.
Is this going to explain to me? Is this wiki going to explain to me why the little robot things don't speak English? And they can't be understood?
They can be understood.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. It just sounded like boop 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 boop. I think we know what I was talking about there.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
You're still not a fan of Star Wars, then?
No, I'm not. No. Are you?
I wouldn't consider myself a fan, but the movies are enjoyable. They're entertainment of an acceptable level.
All right, that's a fair quantification of them then. All right, moving on.
I just made all your Star Wars fans angry with me, don't I?
No, that's fine. That's fine by me. I mean, it's quite clear over a number of years that there's a bias on this podcast towards Star Trek. So, all right, on episode 604, certain co-hosts wish Jagex would do at one certain thing. Fully discover it. Don't try and get it all done before it arrives, because that's not the core point of it. And with the whole aspect of surprise and expansions and Menaphos this year, they want to effectively give players a few months to explore the skill and explore the add-on to the skill to truly learn what it's about. So that's their argument for Amnesty.
There's one easy way that Jagex could have handled this that would have had nothing to do with Amnesty. They could have just shut their mouths. Seriously, you imagine how much development time they would have saved here if they had not said this. No one would have had to know about needing to emergency train to 120.
Oh, so you think
Amnesty.
people are going to do that now? And this was the beginning of, I think, what we would class this year as the conundrum known as Menaphos.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing the perspectives now in hindsight. Now the whole expansion thing happened and then stopped happening altogether. But yeah, I mean, the amnesty thing, I'm not entirely sure how it ended up working, because like the sort of amnesty period sort of sizzled out, I felt, in the end.
Yeah, it was a good 3 months, wasn't it? So.
For a lot of people, yes, but I know there's people who were around when Menaphos came out that still don't have their reputation up because.
Well, yeah, and once again, that's why we decided to not do the year in review show, because we would be going back over a lot of these. Is it right to call them painful things?
They're just mistakes that could have not made.
Yeah.
And that is, like, I'm holding back right now on my.
Oh, I know. I mean, we're supposed to be here discussing the clip show, but it's the end of 2017, and it all comes back to Menaphos, winding itself up and letting itself all out again. So we're going to see how some of that goes going forward. But anyway,
at least some of the J mods got a nice trip to Egypt out of it.
Yeah, actually, it was Morocco.
Oh, what? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it was Morocco, which makes sense, closer to the UK.
Egypt is not a great destination these days.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah,
but that's a topic
point.
for another show. All right. So moving on into episode 605, and that is now the Sirion quarter of the year.
Oh, boy.
So the first, I made a fairly classic mistake on your first episode this year, and it wasn't you. All right. We do have a few achievements this week. Duke Juker got 3 of them. Our 3 achievements: 99 agility, fletching, and mining on February 6th. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Okay. Also, I made an oopsie with the achievements of the week. I have a script that gathers the achievements of the week, 99s and 120s, but I asked for the achievements. I asked for the achievements of the week from February 1st, 2016 to February 9th, 2016. So I did the achievements of the week for 1 year ago.
Okay. Do you want to re-record that and edit it in?
No, I'll just actually, yeah, let's do that quickly. That's actually good. I forgot we could do that. Thank you for keeping me on track there and encouraging us to re-record that section, because if we hadn't have done that, then there would have been no achievements that week.
That would have been a bit awkward, yeah.
Yeah, and that is not the only mix-up from our achievement script, because it's now with 120 Slayer being out. If someone gets 120 Slayer, puts 120 Slayer in the list twice. That's something I will have fixed over Christmas break. I promise. So, we're gonna also move on to another clip here from episode 607. This was, of course, Double XP weekend, and also talking about achievements right here as well. Alrighty. Have you seen the achievements of the week section at the bottom?
Well, you showed me the link to like the two of you, so let me open the file on my laptop because I closed my computer.
I don't know what to do with this.
Just not do it. We can't do that. Oh my, we can't do that. Can you just? What
if we take the top 5 from each day? And for anyone wondering what happened here, this was the week where we had, it's like, what, 65 achievements?
Oh, I don't even know how many it were, but like it was a lot of achievements.
Did we read them all out, or what did we do?
I think we ended just skipping the achievement section.
Yeah. All right. Though I know we did talk about some achievements on that episode because our next clip also pertains to that, and we read some of the achievements twice, and they were in the list, and we just went with it. So here we are. Yeah. So we're not going to read through all these because we would be here forever. I am going to say that if you want to read through this huge list, head on over to update.rsbnb.com and find the show notes. And in the show notes, you can see the full show notes with this list. And yeah, if your name is on here, congratulations. But we will read through some of them. So starting on February 22nd, we had Touchpad Pro with 200 million fishing XP. That's a great way to start off. Colton also got 99 Hunter. Xenon Ray from Clan Quest got 99 Hunter as well on the 22nd. And then Colton on the 22nd also got 99 Hunter. So some good level 99 Hunters right there.
Yeah, I'm really impressed about Colton getting 99 Hunter twice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, oops, did I read that twice? Oh, we appear to have had a slight data problem. I'll let you read the ones from the 21st now.
All right, because the 21st is also pretty interesting because Colton got 99 divination twice for some reason. Then Xenon Ray from Clan Quest got 99 runecrafting. Choto 3000 got 99 strength. Giovannic got 99 runecrafting, and SoCant Comp got 120 invention, so that is actually a step towards comp. Congratulations on all of those, and also on all the double XP achievements. You have been working hard.
That was interesting, wasn't it? We were just reading achievements, and oh, here we are. Colton got 99 divination twice. I also got 99 Hunter twice.
Wasn't this the first bonus experience weekend that you included a Clan Quest?
That's right,
well?
and that's what happened here. Is that I wasn't sorting the data properly, and it was a merging of the RSBANDB and Clan Quest tables, and it was pulling people in who were in both of those twice. That has since been fixed. Moving on now to episode 608, brought us the first quest of 2017, the Penguin Quest. And I think, do you have any idea what this clip's about? Because it was us.
No. I know who was on the show, though.
It was you, myself, and Sarah Pyro.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. I think it's a great quest, right?
That's what I would say. Yeah,
it's like going to see the 2009 Star Trek reboot movie. If you take it for just a good science fiction action movie, it's great. But if you are a mega Star Trek fan and you split all the hairs everywhere, the 2009 movie was really annoying.
I love how you take a movie that involves time travel as an analogy. It's perfect.
Well, there you go. I mean, actually, that's almost exactly the same thing, except a new timeline.
So basically, this is penguins in the Kelvin timeline.
Well, Shane's dying.
I didn't. I did not realize this when I was doing the quest. Did you realize that when you're doing the quest, Sirion?
No, not at all. Just make me aware of that.
You're entirely right. You're entirely right. And much like anyone who listens to this podcast should know I'm a huge Star Trek fan. And the first watch through and the second watch through of the 2009 Star Trek movie, it just didn't feel authentic, and it didn't feel as though it was being taken itself seriously. But if you just recalibrate your mind a bit and put yourself in that exact storyline, much like you can do in the Penguin Quest, it's a good movie, and a good Star Trek movie at that. Much like this is a good quest and a good Penguin Quest.
There you go.
We never planned that out in the pre-show, and we never talked about that beforehand. It just kind of came out, and we just...
I think you just have a talent of turning every conversation into something Star Trek related.
I could very well do that.
I sort of love about that clip how Sir Pyro is completely oblivious about what's going on, I think.
Yeah, and that's normally the way it goes with most Star Trek related things, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah.
Yeah, so... All right, next up is episode 609, and the episode title here was Out of the Closet, and that deals with something on this clip. I don't know, nothing really in the story ever stood out for me. Anything for you?
Not really. I'm probably one of these people that would also not really wear it in public. I'm not out, if that's how you want to call it. But
you're not out?
Oh, like I don't share publicly in my normal life that I'm a big RuneScape fan. So
okay, that's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, that's how we were talking about it on Octane Quest chat last week. Or this week.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
And that has been a phenomenon for the RuneScape community for a long, long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's actually quite funny because just 2 weeks ago, a friend came over and noticed me, I'm always busy with Clan Quest stuff. I can't put it down. So I was working on it. He asked about it. And he asked me to show how RuneScape was these days, and started playing it himself. So I started opening up and realizing people can judge me if they want, but it's something that's part of me and what I really enjoy, so whatever. But yeah, I think it's still this thing where there was this period in my youth where it was a really cool thing, and then there was this period in my youth where it was really an uncool thing to be playing.
Yeah,
RuneScape.
definitely.
I don't know how it came to be, but it's something that's, I think, almost every RuneScape player, at least the people that have been with it a bit longer, will recognize.
Yeah, and I mean it's something we all deal with in our own unique ways, and I think that was a perfect episode title for that. Also on that episode, Snapchat launched a new section of its app, the featured stories section. We had a tour through that in Tech News. Yeah, same. I mean, looking on here right now, I don't think there's anything that would be remotely interesting to you or me. 20 words that only smart people use correctly. 10 proposal stories that will make you ugly cry.
This sounds like BuzzFeed.
Yeah, it certainly does. You ready for the next one?
Oh dear.
Are condoms the best beauty hack? Otters can do a trick that most people can't. These women will give you chills.
What?
Yeah,
what?
These are featured.
Oh my. Why is Snapchat still a thing if that's the case?
IGN. Is this Netflix's worst Marvel show? Oh, Snapchat.
Apparently it's still a thing. It's still not dead. They did a big app redesign. I'm how? Who
Despite
cares?
losing millions and millions of dollars of money, they are still around.
Nope.
Yeah, that's something that annoys the both of us quite extensively. All right, this next one is from episode 610. This was from pre-show. This was one of the few times this year where we failed to start one of the recordings for the podcast because we do a video recording and an audio recording.
Oh, sorry, Sirion. Sorry, Sirion. We need to start this over because I forgot to start the screen recording for the video.
Oh, oh, there you have your clip show. Hold on.
Yep. At least I caught that 2 minutes in. I was wondering, where's the OBS preview?
Oh,
What's
God.
going on?
No.
And it was only 2 minutes in, so I think that's better. That's better.
I think we have done worse on at least an episode while I was
Yep.
on. So
Yeah, there has been way worse. There were episodes in the very early days, i.e. less than 30, where the entire recording was lost. There were episodes where it was broken in half because of a technical problem with audio software, so this wasn't too bad at all.
Nope.
Moving on to episode 611, we had another false start this week. We had two bad weeks in a row on 610 and 611.
Cool.
All right, let us get going then in 3, 2, 1. Engage. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RSBANDB Update. Sirion and I are here this week as per... Shit, I fucked the record button up again, Sirion.
That's the second
12
time
seconds.
in 2 weeks.
Yeah. All right. In 3, 2, 1.
And I caught that one right off the bat.
I think that was one of your best responses of the entire year. Just, I love how you responded to that.
How which?
Your response to finding out that you screwed up the record button again. I hadn't even said a word yet.
Yeah. Well, that's something I do when I'm working with these podcasts, is that I will, in an attempt to make it so you, the co-hosts, are not too concerned about it, I will make it so that I have already fixed the problem and I have made it seem as though it's not that big of an issue, and I am taking the burden on myself by unleashing those words that I did there.
Mm.
Now, that episode did end up being titled "The Courage is Lit," which goes for this very clip that we had here. And of course, we were talking about also courage from the Apple side. So let's see what this clip was about.
Lit cave.
Right. And this was a result of, I believe, well-gothic sleep is when you could light that cave, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And the skill cape teleport, of course, comes from the skill cape perk.
That's right. Well, then, that's pretty lit.
Gosh.
It's no longer possible to receive a skull in the wilderness by attempting to attack your own familiar.
You were a little bit surprised by that, weren't you?
Yeah, so a bit of context. Shane is not always making puns like I am. So when he makes one, it's one of these things that just stands out instantly. And you're like, what? I'm not entirely sure what to do with this, and half the time you're not even sure if it's intentional. So, that caught me a bit by surprise. I wasn't entirely sure how to respond to it.
That's great. All right, now here on, we're going to jump ahead a few episodes from 611 to 614. This was, in essence, one of our episodes that only you and I could put together this year. And there were a number of great things we discussed on this episode. This was, of course, the Easter week, but we also had a good talk about hard drives. Performance of loading for non-SSD users has been optimized up to 2 times faster if fully defragged, more if not. So, this is a very interesting thing, because if you have an SSD, you don't need to defrag your disk because everything is indexed and accessible based on knowing exactly where it is, and its seek times are really low. Whereas on the other hand, if you have a spinning drive, you might be able to get a pointer for a certain block of data on your disk, but the disk has to go and find it.
Now,
Yeah.
that's
I
what
think-
defragging does, and Windows
Yeah.
does that automatically nowadays. So,
So the easiest way to imagine this is like a hard disk is like a spinning disk, right? So it's like there's a pin in a fixed place, and it can move up and down along
like
the
a record
disk.
player.
Yes, but it can't move like around. So what happens is like if you have to read a file, you have to wait for that bit of file to pass under the pin, and that means you sometimes have to like wait for it to go around. That is why fragmented files are slower. While SSDs don't care; they can read from anywhere at any point they want, which means that defragmentation is not that important for SSD users. Actually, it's not recommended to defrag on your SSD because it means you're doing more write operations. It means your SSD wears out more quickly.
Yep. And that's concludes Hard Drives 101 on our RSBANDB update for this week. Next week, we'll be talking about recovering data from sectors that have been disabled or damaged.
Oh.
Oh, if only we could do that. That would be quite the podcast we could talk for hours on, right?
Yes.
I last time I seriously looked about all that stuff was in a data science class, but that was fun.
Yeah, we never ended up doing that recovery episode.
Yeah, we didn't, and I mean we could do it now, but there are tons of clips to go. We're not even halfway through yet, so I don't think that would be a good time to do it. But we did also have another great talk on that episode about another thing that comes from the realm of computer science, and that is user experience design, and something that Jagex doesn't really get right most of the time.
Sadly not.
Anyone who's dedicated to it at Jagex.
I doubt it. I think this
I don't
is
think
more
so.
likely a change that like the player says, oh, this would be a good change, and some developer thinks it's a good change as well and just implements it.
Yep, exactly. And I think that happens more often than it should with RuneScape.
Yes. And that is, I think it would be interesting to have like a really UX designer, like UI designer, for example, for this game, like what changes they would make.
Indeed.
They would probably get rid of about half the toggles.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And that's why the toggles bother me as well.
So the toggles this is fun, right? The toggles is a great example of engineering thoughts because we, engineers, think that everything has to support all different use cases. While it's usually fine to sort of like get rid of some of the ways of using it that's almost never used to simplify the user experience for the rest. And this is one of these cases where you like drop like 1% of your users might have a slightly less experience, but 99% of the users will have a much better experience. And engineers don't get that. Engineers always want full control over anything, and that's probably why we have like hundreds of toggles in this game.
And I
Just
got
a little side note.
And I got another perfect example for you on this, extrapolating out to the real world rather than virtual world. Compare the flight deck of a Boeing 747 from the 1970s compared to an Airbus 380 from today.
Mm-hmm.
The 747 flight deck actually required back then a flight engineer, and there were many more toggles and switches that could be pulled. Compare that now to an Airbus 380. Most of that's been abstracted away towards the computer. And yes, while there's still toggles and switches, it's a lot more simple to fly. So, all right, so we've had the data science and hard drives part of the computer science education program on RSBANDB update today. And now we've had the HCI and UX portion of Computer Science 101 on RSBANDB update. That's so true. That's so true, isn't it?
It is. I mean, we got some UX updates and like how to do the tooltips and stuff like that. You could consider that as like a positive user experience expansion, but like there are few things that are still weird. So I don't know. I feel that maybe throughout the year, Jagex has gotten better at it. Like I don't recognize that much of the complaints. Like I'm not as complaining about it anymore as I was back when this clip was recorded, but yeah, it's a running issue. So
yeah, my biggest last one was when they let players decide on which ninja fixes to put in game, and they almost all passed.
Yeah, Yeah, of course they will.
Yeah, and that goes back to that same idea of if you let the players decide, they will undoubtedly want it. So
They will want everything, and that is not really what development is about.
yes. And speaking of wanting everything, we move on to episode 615 right now. You know what episode that was?
No, I don't remember episode numbers.
That was Enterprising Achievements, the release of the Achievements and New Paths system.
Oh.
And this was another one of those updates that came out, had so much potential, but needed many fixes to bring it up to the
Leading
level
up to
that
this
it needed.
update, I had so many ideas, like, this is how it could be done, this is how it could enhance the game, and then it came out, and I think this was the most disappointing update of the year.
Yeah, because it was like we get this skin of an update, but it's not really all that usable. So, All right, here's how we open that episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to RSBANDB Update. Siran and I are here this week as per usual. Welcome back.
Shane made me come this week. I didn't want to, but he made me.
Yeah, people say that about me. I can be very persuasive on that agenda, but you know, this is getting off. This is getting off to exactly the right track we wanted, isn't it?
Yeah.
You would be, folks. You would be amazed at the discussions that we have in pre-show. You called this week's podcast a visit to the dentist.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the right analogy, but yeah.
Meanwhile, I equated it with the feeling of going to a funeral. Something you have to do, but you don't want to do.
Yeah. Something in between, maybe, but or maybe a funeral while you're at the dentist.
Gosh.
So that would get weird.
Cue Amazing Grace in the background, and
Yeah.
who knows what else. But anyways, this is not we are not funeral planners here, even though that could be a job if I wanted it to be.
This was so...
It was a hard episode to record.
Normally, I am super excited to be on the show, right?
Yeah.
I love talking
Yeah,
about
me
things
too.
I'm passionate about, and that week, like when the update came out and I started playing around, like the entire days until the recording day, I was just not looking forward to recording it because I wasn't sure where to go with it.
Yeah.
And I think I listened back to this clip and I'm like, I can hear myself having no idea how to tackle this episode.
Yeah, and that is an internal struggle for us. It was also an internal struggle for us with Menaphos, because and Shattered Worlds too, because these updates come out, we play them for the first time, just like you guys do, and we form our opinions on them. And if our opinions are not good, we need to take that opinion, no matter how horrible it might be in our heads, and make it into something that is constructive. Because a long, long time ago, I said that we are not going to turn into a podcast that is slanderous towards Jagex, because that helps no one. That doesn't help us. It doesn't help them. And it's a question of how do you find that nice middle road where you're being constructive, yet criticizing the update just as it needs to be. And that was the case with the Achievements update. And Menaphos. And Shattered Worlds. I'm sure I could list a couple more off there, but that's the way it is. And you know, this is also why I don't look on social media or forums or anywhere for opinions on these updates, because I want to make my own opinion. I'm not going to see what other people have to say about this. So
yeah, but that was a particularly hard episode.
Yeah.
To work on. Like, compare that episode to for example a recent episode about the Evil Dave quest. Like, if you are excited about an episode, like, and you find all these references, you can imagine like just coming into a show and you're just being told by Shane, talk about the things you like. Just explain to people why you liked it, and you have a blast, and you talk to those. Well, in my case, 2 hours, like in no time, and then you have an update like this, and you try to make the best of it. And I mean, I think we did pretty well in the end on the episode, but it was really tiring to get through that, and I don't know, it takes doing it to appreciate the effort that goes into that.
Exactly. And it was episodes like this, episodes like Shattered Worlds, that have informed our way of going forward on this and ensuring that we're able to work constructively. So, but episode 615 wasn't all that bad. There was an episode where we talked about the fire making pet, Bernie.
It may be for the best that you're asking community for suggestions, because I'm pretty sure they can come up with something more original than a little door made out of wood and a little door made out of wood on fire.
Very true.
I mean,
very true.
I'm still pretty upset about the fire making pad, to be honest. I'm really upset about it. It's so dumb.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, at least this isn't. At least we're not farming out ideas for updates here, right?
No, I'm just the fire making pads from the Fire Maker's Curse look better.
Yeah, they could have modeled them even after Bernie Sanders, and they probably would have got more traction.
Yeah,
did
probably.
name him Bernie.
Yeah.
Could have just made Bernie Sanders with the flaming hair head, and I'm sure people would have liked that, because, oh boy, that guy had lots of energy last year.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was 78 years old, and he was campaigning for president, so put him in RuneScape.
I'm really impressed with him. Just on a side note.
See, we started that episode with achievements, then we went into the combat pets because the ideas were being solicited at that time for combat pets, and then we started talking about woodcutting and fire making pet, and we decided that, like you said, woodcutting and fire making, same thing, except one's on fire.
I still think the fire making pad is dumb. I haven't changed my opinion on that. I will never change my opinion on that.
I agree. Definitely.
I will use a fire maker's curse pad over that pad.
Yeah. And I mean, like, they could have went the pop culture route, like I said, and made it like a person with white hair that was on fire and just named him Bernie and gave him some motivational quotes when you examine him, and that would have been a distinguishing factor for him. But they didn't. All right, on to episode 616 now, the last of the Sirion quarter this year. I'll let the clip speak for itself and what the title of that episode was. Test of strength. So you hit the bell and you basically got to, your character does an animation. It swings a hammer and a little thing goes up and hits the bell and yada-da-da-da and ding, 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 and away we go.
I wrote down the exact thing you said there. I was really furiously typing to make sure it was recorded as an episode title because I wanted to make sure it was right. That's what I do for you, Shane, on these episodes.
And I am forever grateful for that, because that was a great title.
It was a great title.
And that's what everyone else thinks as well, is that, they get these little sound clips everywhere that might be a little nugget like that, and there we go. Yada da 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 and ding ding ding.
Sometimes coming up with an episode title is really hard, and sometimes you don't even have to think; it just happens. And all these things just happen usually. Like nothing is like talked about before, or like we don't agree on making jokes beforehand. It's all improvisation, so that makes it all the more impressive.
Yeah, and that really speaks a lot to I guess you guys, the co-hosts, you guys' ability to just come out here and do that and be put on the spot like that. That's really great. So. All right, moving on to episode 618. Was titled Giving and Managing Expectations. This episode featured one of the Shane sneezes that would have been edited out, which I think we've all heard before, but listeners might not have, so here you are.
Well, that's interesting, and it almost sounds like they were admitting that, there's a lot of people that, they may have a Windows PC, but I still got an iPhone. So, I mean, I'm glad about that cross.
I got to edit that out. Sorry. That one got away from me. All right. Pick up from where you last were.
It's nothing to break the routine except for like a Shane sneeze.
Yeah, and there are people who have heard them over the voice before and then heard them in real life, and it's apparently more terrifying in real life.
I'll keep that in mind.
So that was episode 618 with Tanis. We're moving on now to episode 621. Some more shenanigans with achievements. And, that seems to be a running thing this year, that we always had trouble with achievements. So here we are. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Starting off this week on the 31st, we have Marnit, who got 120 invention. Also on the 31st, we have Cyan, who got 99 woodcutting. Moving on to the 30th, we have Grimy Tosels with 99 fishing and 99 smithing. Continuing on the 30th, we have iDefend with, I guess that's iDefend, with 99 strength and 99 mining. Okay, fuck this. We're restarting. I don't know what the... I told you guys...
Don't edit the fuck. I've never heard Shane actually say it. Like, clip show.
You haven't been around Shane Gaming, have you?
I guess not.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's normal.
All
In
right.
fact, I'm surprised it took an hour and a half to get one.
Achievements take 2.
I don't normally screw up on the show, do I?
No, it happens very rarely that we actually have to redo part of the show, and this is pretty big. I think it's like once or twice a year, maybe.
Yeah,
I would assume.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I mean, there's different ones. Like, for instance, my allergies crop up during the show, and I need to cough or I need to sneeze. That's one thing, but it doesn't come out of left field like that, where I just bungle saying a name and need to redo the entire segment, let alone once or twice or 3 times like I did in that clip. That episode also unveiled a new pick of the week that I was working with that time, Nuzzle. So I will talk about that right now. All right. You guys ready for the second big mystery of this, or third biggest mystery of this week's podcast?
Is this your mystery?
Yes.
Oh, I want to know. The suspense is killing me.
Does anyone have any guesses before we begin?
No, I've been trying to figure this out since you told me this morning.
Does it involve nuzzling?
That'll be later on the podcast.
Oh, no.
But thank you, Tanis.
You're welcome.
Do you remember what the mystery was?
I don't actually.
That's because that project has been put on the shelf, and that project was an Iron Man farmer.
Oh, I remember you doing that. Yes.
The thing is I was going to do it, but there was just so much question up in the air about what was going to be happening in the future, that with the whole Menaphos and reverse strategy thing, and basically a tip on the head of what we knew to be the case going forward, I decided, okay, let's just focus on the main right now and put the alternate on the side until we figure out which way Jagex is going to go and what the community is going to look like after this whole debacle works its way
Spend
through.
a couple of hours on Menaphos reputation.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's what co-hosts are for.
That's right. And next one is also on that episode where we talk about the pick of the week. You guys want to nuzzle at the end of the show?
A what?
You guys want to nuzzle?
Nuzzle? What's a nuzzle?
Well, you're
Shane,
about to find out.
We need the bot.
I am recording this.
Good. That's going to make the clip show at the end of the year.
Maybe.
I want to nuzzle. For fuck's sake.
I know, Dom. You've always wanted a nuzzle from me.
No, fuck off.
And see, when people put it out there, I can be creepy in return. And I think that's a good way of describing that clip. So
Yeah, it is a bit. It is a bit.
I'm not normally like that. I think you can attest to that, right?
What do I get for saying yes?
You get my continued friendship and the services I provide to Clan Quest.
All right. Shane is not always like that.
Thank you. All right, moving on to episode 623 right now, which was entitled Menaphos Modesty. Yeah, that was actually an interesting episode as well. So let's have at that one.
I just want to. I just think it would be funny, to be like, and this is for you, Earth. Fuckity, fuck. You.
The rollover fucks, right?
Yeah, the rollover. Just a steady beep.
We were planning in pre-show there, and Tanis was saying what he wanted to do at the end of that episode as kind of a tribute to his time on the podcast. And he wanted to go to something back in the Earth days where Earth would insist that he would be able to swear a certain number of times on each episode. And if he didn't, they would roll over to the next one. So that's what Tanis wanted to do on 623.
Did he?
No, they didn't, actually. I talked them out of that for that episode. But it's interesting you mentioned that, because on the following episode, where we wrapped up the whole Menaphos conundrum on episode 626, they actually surprised me with it, both Tanis and Mr. Bistro. That's actually the next clip. With that being said, that's it for this episode of Update. Thank you both for being here for the last month and a bit. You guys have really done a great job on this Menaphos coverage, and I think the listeners will agree with that.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
Thanks, Shane. I've had a blast. It's been great. Thanks to the community. I've had a warm welcoming, and I just want to throw something back to one of the other co-hosts, kind of a legacy thing. But as far as I know, Earth has been saving up. He's got around like 957. So Earth is for you.
No.
There you go.
Oh, you just had to do that.
I did. I didn't forget.
Wow. Okay. And, of course, Mr. Bistro, it was nice having you back after we did your quarter and a bit at the tail end of last year. So
It's been amazing.
Yeah! Yay!
They both got me there at the end. Well, at least it was sort of limited to like one segment, so the editing was not too bad, I assume.
Yeah, that's true. And I didn't actually save the full unedited version of that because the editing required that to be actually stripped out of the raw files. So that's the best we got for that. But I think you guys get the idea of what was said there. So. All right, so we're moving on to episode 627 right now, and this was one of our off episodes. After Menaphos, I decided, okay, we need to take a break. We need to take a couple of weeks off. We need to take a couple of weeks off of RuneScape, and we need to really discuss something different than RuneScape. And we did that with Overwatch and Star Trek Online. And to do that, we had some people from the RSBANDB Overwatch group, King Cullah and Jeff, to discuss Overwatch. And here's some clips from that episode. And this episode had the all-time record this year of 5 clips from a single episode. So here we go. And also to discuss Jeff, a very special guest, is Jeff from the Overwatch team, our competitive Overwatch team.
Hey.
Jeff is a friend of Earth's, and, there's a huge history here between all of us, but suffice to say we're all friends now and we all play Overwatch together, and you seemed like a natural
pick to have on the podcast because you've asked about it so many times and you wanted to see what it was like. And, well, you know a lot about Overwatch, too, and lots of other things, including numbers. So I thought we'd have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. This should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Did you catch the thing there at the beginning?
Yeah.
I said we were going to be discussing Jeff.
So did you in the end?
Yes, we did actually a bit because Jeff actually has a PhD in mathematics, so he works a lot with numbers. So we actually talked a bit about those numbers on the podcast, so we did discuss Jeff in a way. That's an excellent.
I'm gonna love this, am I not?
Yeah, probably. You'll probably agree with me. We'll see. Jeff, you have any thoughts on Jupiter?
I'm just amazed at our ability to build and engineer technology that can do this, to actually help us learn what's going on. I mean, think about how difficult of a problem that is.
Yeah. I mean, not only from building the hardware itself, but determining what needs to go into the calculations to get it there, right? Because it's not just a simple send it up and point it in one direction. You got to factor in so many things with that. And lots of people involved in that, lots of computation and whatnot, which I know something is you enjoy numbers, don't you?
I do enjoy numbers.
They're so innocuous, aren't they?
Sure.
Well, I mean, on their own, numbers can't hurt anyone, right?
That's right.
Because once they're applied, they can. So we've had this discussion before, but I figured we'd just bring it to the podcast, right?
That's right.
We were discussing Jupiter's red spot and the new photos that were taken at the time of the space probe that was there. And specifically...
was it Galileo?
No. Or whichever one was there this summer.
We have Galileo and Cassini, right?
Probably Cassini.
We had a great year for space.
Yeah, we really did.
Flight this year. Like, people might have noticed that whenever I'm on the show, I every now and then I try to push some like space technology tech news on the show, and even behind the back, every now and then, I as a producer, I try to sort of send all these articles to Shane, hoping that he picks them up, and I think it's great.
Yeah,
and I think it's great, and I think everybody should be aware of the things we're doing because it's completely awesome.
Yeah, and on their own, numbers can't hurt anyone.
Yeah, but when they are applied, they will.
That's right. Now, it wasn't all fun and games on that episode. We did actually discuss that piece of tech news in the pre-show, and it kind of went a little bit dark or disgusting. So I'll just leave that to the clip right now. And the third one is NASA's Juno takes new pictures of the Great Red Spot. Yes, and this was in tech news before you mentioned that to me earlier this week.
Okay, that's fine. I won't say anything.
It spots the spot.
He said something far worse.
It's because it's true. Can I tell Patrick?
Yes, you can tell Patrick. We're not on the air yet.
Okay.
I'll probably find it funny.
The pictures that they took, because of the slice and because of where the red spot is, makes it look like a used maxi pad. Was the first thing I thought when I saw it. I was like, that's a pad that's about to go in the trash.
Wow.
Shane doesn't like that.
Yeah, I bet not.
That was not my first thought.
No, same.
I think it takes a special kind of brain to have that as a first thought.
Yep. What was your first thought? And we also determined it was the Juno spacecraft.
I don't know. I think just that's cool. That's like generally my response to space news is, oh, that's cool. It's really cool.
That's right.
When can I go to Mars? I want to go to Mars.
I would sign up to do that with you. I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go to Mars.
Oh, really?
It's a one-way ticket these days, right?
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I get tired of going on vacation after 2 weeks. Like 10 months in space is not going to work for me.
That's right.
And to be honest, the internet speeds would probably be terrible as well. So you know.
Yeah.
And imagine the ping while playing games.
You'd be limited to LAN parties only.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna work. I would love to visit space one day, though. Like, even if it's just like one of these parabolic trips into space, I think just the experience I would possibly pay quite a lot for.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not entirely infeasible that within the next, 25, 40 years, there could be a colony on Mars. I mean, not Mars, the moon, sorry.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, give it a decade and space tourism is a big thing, I'm pretty sure.
Indeed. All right, I also had a Freudian slip on this episode introducing Jeff. I accidentally called him an old man. Next up is Soldier 76, which is the old man of the Overwatch group here. I'm sorry, Jeff. Sorry. I'm sorry. I laughed. That's not. I didn't mean it that way.
It's fine.
Okay.
Basically, to keep it tactful, you could basically just say that Soldier 76 is not a young man anymore.
All right.
And yeah.
I just lost that, and I had to redo that when it was time. So I didn't mean you, Jeff. I just
it's fine.
I just said old man, and then I realized what the reaction would be when people heard that.
It's all good.
All right, so
okay.
You good?
Good.
As it turns out, Jeff is a few years older than me, and that was just a bit of a Freudian slip because in Overwatch, Soldier 76, who Jeff plays, is the oldest character in that game. So there's a bit of a Freudian slip right there. Oh. I don't normally make fun of people's ages, so yeah. All right, on to the next clip we go. This next one is also from 627 here, and I introduced RSBANDB Update as the wrong podcast, which doesn't really happen all that much. So here we are. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of The Right Side.
I thought you'd do that since I'm here. Oh, that's great.
I don't know what just happened.
He tried since I'm here. He thought of this the other podcast, The Right Side. So he introduced us as that because I'm here and messed him up. Too good.
All right, take two.
In 3, 2, 1. Yeah. So for those of you guys unaware, I do another podcast on Canadian news and Canadian media, and King Caller Patrick is my host of that show. So because he was there for that episode of Update, I introduced us as being on the other show. So,
to be honest, with like doing recordings every week for both of them, I'm surprised it happens this valley.
Yeah, me too. One area, because we use the same production pipeline for both shows. Just one is more accelerated than the other. So the only time other potentially happens is when we're recording the show titles, and it happens more for the other one than it does for Update. So, all right, moving on to episode 628 now, which was our Star Trek special of the year, where also, in addition to the Star Trek Online special, we talked about RuneScape Mobile. That was when Jagex announced that, and I just had to do one specific thing once that was announced. So I'll just let the clip speak for itself. I just need to take a moment here and do a bit of a victory lap because, there was a certain community online that said, oh, this is going to be RS4 and they're going to remove the tick rate and they're going to remove dynamic map loading tiles and it's going to be an entirely new client and that's what we're going to get here on Monday. But
an entirely new client?
Yeah, that's right. That's what
they just released one?
Exactly, and that's why that made 0 sense whatsoever. I mean, if you look at the technical side of the NXT client, the client they released last year, that client on its own is only being used a fraction of what it's capable of. Anything that Jagex wants to do in the future can be done. And we know what community that was.
It was a perfect impersonation. I could not distinguish it from the real one. Kudos to you, Shane.
I know, and
so good.
I mean, anyone who looks at what NXT is and where NXT came from and what NXT is built with will know that if Jagex wanted to, they could build all of this into the current NXT client. It's just been conscious decisions that have been made that prevented them from doing so. And
it's not the client that's the problem. It's the server software that's the problem.
Right. And I mean, it just wouldn't make sense for them to do that for RuneScape. And that's why I knew from the very beginning that this new client wasn't going to be what was going to be announced there. And I think mobile surprised everyone but me. So, also on that week, we had another discussion on RS Mobile, and we were quoting directly from Jagex's stream here. And this kind of goes back to being out for RuneScape a bit, so I'll play the clip right now. So there was one more question that was asked in this Q&A. How can RS Mobile be successful? And their answer was, take part in the beta and share what you're doing on your phone. Don't minimize it if someone comes to see you, and don't pretend that it's something you don't want them to see. And the exact word was, don't say it's porn.
Beep. Which is concerning to me.
Why?
Because, is that... Do they think that people would rather say that they are watching porn instead of playing cards?
Yeah, you never know.
I know which one I'd rather say I was doing.
What, looking up Orion slave girls?
No, I'd rather say I was playing RS.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So that was the Trekkie and Earth episode as well this year.
It is almost impressive you kept that not explicit with Earth there.
Well, there were some edits that had to be made, and I made him promise coming in that it wouldn't be too many, because what was happening was the day after this episode was recorded and released, it was done on the same day, I believe. I was leaving for vacation, so it had to be really compressed down. So that was a deal that was made for that episode. That same episode, 628, also saw the beach event, or rather the Build the Beach event, one of the many community-related events where you gather little trinkets around the RuneScape world that was put out this year, and I inadvertently made a reference to another franchise. So this week we got the Build the Beach event where you can bring sand to Reyna in the Lumbridge Crater. And you get the sand basically while you're skilling around RuneScape, and if you manage to complete the event by bringing her 15,000 sand, you can get a ring of sand, which lets you turn into a pile of sand. You can also get the sand cave. Yeah, me too. I don't like it. It gets everywhere. It's annoying. There's also...
Was that, Shane, was that a Star Wars reference?
I don't believe so.
Oh, Reed.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was, Shane.
Oh.
Yes, very much.
I told Shane that earlier, and he's repeating it.
Oh, so I just worked it into my consciousness then, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Not only
you got played.
Not only that, Shane, you said something that literally there's like a million YouTube videos on the conspiracy theories and Star Wars theory on that quote.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. I wasn't aware of that going in. Were you?
It would have ringed a bell, but I don't recognize it as such. But yeah. Sand is annoying.
I agree. Though perhaps not in the Star Wars sense. No. All right, from that, we're jumping a bit forward now to episode 631, and there are just some days in RuneScape history that I can remember as if they were on the back of my own hand, and one of them is pertaining to some people's favorite skill. So that's what this clip is about. Definitely a good little quality of life update. I imagine, though, based on how Dungeoneering works, that was a little bit of behind-the-scenes work to actually get this working, seeing as it took 7 years for it to come out. Dungeoneering came out on April 12th, 2010.
Such a horrible day.
Well, I mean, I have mixed feelings about it at this stage.
Where were you when Dungeoneering came out?
Just taking digs at my favorite skill.
Oh, it's your favorite skill?
It's favorite activity.
Oh,
favorite skill. Yeah, favorite skill.
I see what you did there. 7.5 years later, we're still having talks about whether Dungeoneering is a skill or an activity.
And now we can add one to the list. It can also be an elite skill.
Can it, though?
Yeah, it's like a combination of lots of other skills.
Yeah, I guess that works.
Or maybe it's a distraction and diversion.
Oh, maybe that could be it. One of the biggest distractions and diversions that exists in the entirety of the game of RuneScape. So.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on now to episode 632, where we had Brad, our Chief Snake, back on the show. And in pre-show, we actually had a bit of an odd bug here regarding Bluetooth headphones. So I'll just play this right now.
What?
You're
just going to have to put up with me. Fucking Bluetooth, hey. How are you even still hearing me? I don't know what is this going through the phone or?
I don't know.
Oh, I wish you were recording this, Shane.
I am recording this, actually.
Perfect. Those New Zealand roads, they're just not what they should be.
Like, I can't hear you, so you should just kick me off. If that's the thing you can do.
Call me back when we're ready, Shane.
All right, will do. So a bit of background behind this. He was out before we were due to begin recording, and he called us from the car phone, like with Bluetooth, right? And after that had finished, he apparently hung up the phone, but he heard us coming through his speakers, and we could hear him speaking as well. But no one knew why that was the case, because he had apparently terminated the call.
That's great. It wasn't like an actual phone call. Was it Skype?
It was Skype.
Oh, of course it was Skype.
Yeah. I wouldn't call New Zealand on a landline. That's just far too expensive.
Nah, it's getting better these days.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that was very interesting, and that was one of our pre-show escapades this year. So, we're gonna move on now to episode 633. Yeah, so that's what they're doing. Okay, I perhaps shouldn't be reading the chat right now that you guys are having here.
Oh, sorry. Moving on.
And that is also something that happens on RSBANDB Update, is that the co-host sometimes will have these chats going on in Skype while I'm trying to direct what's going on with the rest of the show. Unfortunately, for the case of this podcast, I couldn't find where exactly Skype was during that time. So I'm not sure exactly what these two were talking about at the time, but it was the RR Man and Tannis. But, it was enough that, I guess it did kind of get off the rails a little bit, actually. Oh, I have the conversation right here. Hang on. No, there was yeah, okay. Here we go. They wanted the title for this episode to be The 80% Finished Toilet.
What was the context of the episode?
Something to do with plumbing in the background for the mining and smithing skill and Shattered Worlds. So they wanted the Jagged's plumbing service is what we eventually went for, but they wanted initially the 80% finished toilet. Yeah.
We have like these like never like huge chats because that's too distracting. But like sometimes there's like little nuggets of chat that come in during the show.
Yeah. All right, maybe that's something we should consider for 2018, consolidating all this to a central location. But I don't know. Moving on now to September, we had Dave joining us for the podcast in September, and there was a constant discussion going on there about whether or not whether or not the PVM side of the community was being focused on enough. And this is from episode 635.
I know the PVM community has been kind of bellyaching that, they don't really get much content other than actual bosses.
That's really funny.
But no, I think it's cool. I like the sort of data thing.
That's really funny.
Inconsequential, I believe so, but I think it's neat.
That's the funniest thing I've heard all year on this podcast, Dave.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, it's.
That's a real knee snapper.
If we're gonna tick something else off, it would definitely be another PVM update. So we should probably have a drop log for how many PVM updates we get every year. So
there you go. That's a nice way of looking at it. Alongside this, there's also titles that you can claim when you. This is, of course, for the boss drop logging update.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, this is something I think that the pendulum is swinging back on a bit based on the results of the most recent content poll that's up in game. It appears as though the request going forward is actually on skilling content, which is surprising, but we have just had a ton and ton of combat updates. And something that actually came really funny from this, I got a message from a listener after this episode, and he said that, if you hadn't have started laughing when you did at that point, I would have thought Dave was being serious. So, would you come to that same conclusion?
No,
I agree. No. All right. Jumping forward 2 episodes now, 637 for Invention Batch 2. One of our favorite updates of the year. Next up is the Divine-O-Matic vacuum, though...
Or as Shane so coined it, the sucker thingy. So we'll just...
Yeah, the sucker thingy.
Yeah, the sucker thingy.
Or what they could have done to be uniquely British about it is they could have just called it the Divine Hoover, because they call their vacuums Hoovers in the UK, because that was a brand of vacuum. So,
I'm sure there was some copywriting in there somewhere, but who knows?
Well, I mean, it's a proper noun. They say they're going to go Hoover the house.
Well, there you go.
So
I think that probably
I
would
think
have
they could have got away with it.
Save a few syllables there, yeah.
You Hoover the floor, Sirion, often?
No, not as often as I should, but I have actually started using the word Hoover over vacuum, like whenever I'm cleaning the house. Like a lot of things, like when you learn English as a second language, there's a lot of American influences because that's like what everybody talks on TV and that kind of stuff. But then when you move to the UK, you have a couple of friends who are British, and like slowly but surely you start sort of assimilating that tiny little deviations to language, and hoovering is one of them. Plus hoover is easier to say than vacuum for me, so
Yeah, so the Divine Hoover could have been a thing in RuneScape.
The Divine Hoover, I would have laughed really hard, probably. And isn't that what RuneScape is about?
Indeed. All right, now just an honorable mention for episode 638. That was the RuneFest episode, and numerically wise, that was our most popular episode of 2017. So a lot of production went into that one, and thank you to everyone who was on that, you, Siriana, included, and all of the guests that you guys managed to track down at RuneFest. That was a really great episode.
That was. We had some fun times during RuneFest doing that. Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. But anyways, following that, we had episode 639 in which Paul, PFK99's, made his return back to RuneScape. And have you ever heard the PFK99 story there, Sirion?
No, I haven't.
All right, well, here it is. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RSBANDB Update. Dave and I are here this week.
Hello, hello.
Also joining us is Paul, or PFK99's. Welcome back to the podcast.
Howdy, howdy.
Should we tell the story?
You have to.
Yeah, okay. Dave, you ever heard the story about how Paul got an update to begin with?
I don't believe so. Let's hear it.
Alrighty. So Paul, once upon a time, was one of our community members who ran events, and but before that, he took part in our events, and we used to run these events to get on the podcast. And one of the events we ran was, I believe, it was a Valentine's Day picture contest for RSBANDB Update. So what
Sure
Paul
was.
did is he sent in his RuneScape Valentine's Day screenshot. But of course, what he did for this is Paul actually got married to someone in game for RSBANDB update. So ever since then, Paul has been known as the guy who got married to another guy in RuneScape.
Oh yeah.
So
In the trying times, you do what you got to do.
Do what you got to do. You know.
No judgment. No judgment.
Don't you just love that story?
Worked. And it worked.
I do love that story, and I think I remember that picture contest now that you say that.
Absolutely amazing. You know?
I remember somebody... didn't somebody go to pest control and get like everybody with HP capes and like a heart fashion or something, or was that a different contest?
Somebody did that as well. That one didn't win. Paul won. I actually remember that now that you mention it.
Yeah, that was way back in the day.
That's got to be somewhere around 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say it pains me to say it, but that sounds
we're
about
just a
10
bunch
years
of old farts here.
Yeah.
Also,
Back in my day.
speaking of that, someone at RuneFest was wearing a shirt that said "Buying GF," and his girlfriend was with him in a blue party hat, and it said "Sold."
Sold. I did see that.
On Reddit. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we don't call it Reddit here. We call it something else, but we're not going to be talking about that this week. Maybe next week.
Best place on Earth is what you call it, I can imagine.
No.
Yes. On opposite day.
Our favorite endearing term for various communities on that website is the shithole.
Yes, and to put it nicely, the cesspool. But yes.
Yeah. You can't go to Donald Trump's, what do you call it? You can't go there. That's just trash. You can't do that.
That one's fun though.
Oh, that's a shame to hear.
Entertaining. We'll
there
say
you go.
that.
Well, what we do for fun on the internet is no one's different opinion. I mean,
Yeah, some people get married to other guys. I mean, it's whatever you want to do to get on a podcast. What we do for fun on the internet is between you and the internet, right?
Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, what happens on the internet stays on the internet unless
it's on a podcast and we tell the story.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, I mean, you have to get this through the internet unless it comes on like a thumb drive through somebody, or something. I don't know.
Some people browse 4chan and whatnot as well, and various other areas on the internet. So, I mean,
if you have to use a Tor browser, then you might want to reevaluate what you're doing.
There you go.
Oh boy! Okay. So this is a RuneScape podcast,
yes,
right?
It is actually a RuneScape podcast. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Oh my gosh! Going back to what we do on the internet for fun, some of us play RuneScape.
I think that might be the best piece of advice of the entire year of the podcast. If you're using a Tor browser to do what you're doing, you might want to reevaluate what you're doing. That is probably one of the best quotes of any episode.
Yeah, I agree. And the Paul strategy. I mean, you didn't need to do that. You're here. You got here through other means. But that did happen in the past.
I like to think I got on the episode because I sounded smart.
Exactly. And I don't recall for this episode if this was the actual open we used for this episode, because this was right at the beginning of the show, and it just kind of went on for 3.5 minutes there. So, but that wasn't the end of it. Actually, that continued throughout that episode and was brought up again, except not by me. But that's the pick of the week: Star Trek Discovery on CBS All Access in the U.S. and Netflix everywhere else. Or if you're in Canada and you're lucky, you get it on the Space Channel. So, Star Trek Discovery. All right. So what have we been up to? Let's start with you, Paul. What have you been up to on RS?
Slayer and Attack are my two primary goals things. So we've been doing those and trying to get dailies in while I can. Outside of RuneScape, I've been working. And I've got my first interview with an actual person tomorrow, so that'll be neat. I'm interviewing a dude. It's going to be great.
Just try not to marry him to get on a radio show.
I don't think that'll be a problem. I'm supposed to interview a guy now 3 times. Last Friday, last Tuesday, then Friday, and then Tuesday again. He flaked out on Tuesday.
Oh my gosh.
How terrible is that?
So not only did I or not only was it me that didn't bring it up, Dave brought it up that time, and we learned that apparently in some places you can miss an interview 3 times and still get an interview.
Wow.
That's pretty absurd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh boy. But in case you're ever wondering about RSBANDB update weddings, they have happened before. So there we go. Moving on now to episode 640, the beginning of October. Tycho Elf on this podcast.
Sirian wanted me to be on that, but I was apparently running around too much as a 350-year-old gnome with a beard. So I was, well, somewhere else, probably, and just leaning on my stick.
Leaning on your stick.
Yeah, leaning. They actually told me that the walk I did was actually pretty good, that I looked really old, and one of the security members thought that my beard was real.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But what made me most nervous was when I was at the entrance and showed them my ticket. They said, can I see your stick, please? And I gave it to them. And he actually had to call his boss to check if I could enter with my stick, because it was considered as a weapon, because it was made out of wood. And I'm like, no, please no. I transported it all the way from Sweden. It's a show-off walking stick. Please, I cut it myself during the winter. and yes, they let it through. And later, one of them talked to me and said just briefly that don't go around poking any J-mods or anything. And I'm like, totally no. And ironically, later I see some kind of show of 2 people fighting with swords. With swords that looked quite real. At least the sound was.
RuneFest once again, and Tycho going around as Hazelmere and had an actual stick, and almost didn't get it in there with security. So.
Yeah, we had a bit of a worry and a laughter at the same time when we noticed that. So we all walked to the entrance, and all of a sudden we're like, "Where's Tycho?" He was like just stood there with the stick that they wouldn't let in. But yeah, like there were lots of people walking around with things that I would consider weapons. But like you have to imagine, this was only a few weeks after one of the attacks in London, so like security was was really high. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they had actually taken the stake, but like it was fine in the end.
That's good. Now moving on to 642, we talked about Dimension of the Damned, and specifically the rebalance to Dimension of the Damned. This was before the finale of Dimension of the Damned. So here's a little bit on Dimension of the Damned.
This was a perfect location, so we started fighting back to back and really cooperating. And there was not a single thought in my head about high scores or anything, but just survive. And
were you on one of your sessions when you did this?
Came running and said, "Oh, there's 2 guys fighting. I need help to survive." And for us, it was basically a horde incoming. and just I don't know how we managed to survive that, but we did.
That was another one of those episodes that we needed to talk about, but was going to be hard to talk about in a specific way, because of all the rebalancing that happened along the way.
And this was before like it got really bad.
Before it got really bad. Before the finale was canceled, or sorry, not canceled. Before the finale was moved, and then before the issues at the actual finale itself. So, yeah. Anyways, that episode also continued to go off the tracks, particularly at Tech News. Virtual reality headsets out there from, companies like Acer, Dell, HP, Oculus, and of course their own HoloLens headset with this here. Okay.
Interesting.
I apparently. Did I ask for this?
to $21.96.
Did I ask my phone for this?
I didn't hear you ask for anything.
Okay.
Apparently, it thought you needed to know.
I just got the closing stock numbers for Dell and HP. Okay.
Well, IT loves predicting things you need before you even know it.
For some reason, I thought I wanted the stock report that day. I don't know exactly how I triggered that, but hey, there we are.
I mean, it's a real problem doing episodes. Like, I have a Google Home at home, and because by default, when you say the thing that activates it, which I'm not going to do because it's standing right there, it doesn't give any auditory feedback, like only visual feedback. But I don't always look at it when I use it, so I turn on the auditory feedback, which is really distracting if it happens during an episode, if you're in the middle of a sentence. Yeah. So this is a real problem. Like, whenever you say like one of these keywords, like something will activate, and like you're distracted and you're in the middle of a sentence and you lose your entire train of thought. It's a real thing.
Yeah, and
like sometimes I mute it. Most of the time I forget, but I think we've had issues with Xboxes in the past.
Yes, we have had issues with X. I'm not going to say that because it'll turn on. Yeah. So I mean, there has to be. I think this is still very early on in terms of technology, and that's why it's kind of rough, right?
It must. I mean, it gets better all the time, but like especially when. So I'm bilingual, so especially when watching things in a different language, there's many more false activations because, like, I don't know why. Apparently, Dutch sounds a lot like the activation word you use for Google. You have to be so careful not to say that now. But yeah, I hope it gets better. But it's like for podcasts, it can be really disruptive.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you can sort of work around it, but because it's not activated by anyone else on the show except for yourself. So you're always in the middle of a sentence when it happens. So you always sort of get distracted by it.
Yep, indeed. All right. Moving on to that, we had episode 643, in which was the episode regarding microtransactions. We're going to start off here with a little clip from pre-show. This is something you guys don't normally see, but it kind of just goes to show some of the kind of oddities that can happen with technology still here. That's another one of these.
I'd just like to ask Shane, on the RSBANDB Informer one, because I got my ads open for your site, so AdBlocker whitelists yours to allow them. I'm getting an AnastasiaDate.com. Meet our Halloween beauties. What are you telling me, mate?
What? I have no idea.
Your ads are
just informer.rsbnb.com or what?
Yeah, that's because I've got ads allowed, and that's the ad that's on there.
Oh God! What?
Oh, that's quite funny. I just found it quite funny.
It is funny. I don't think anyone understands how advertisements are sourced on the internet.
I don't think even the actual advertisers don't know anymore. It's all machines.
Yeah. Because there is nothing context-wise on RSBANDB Informer that should suggest dating ads or Halloween beauties as they were in this case.
Well, it can have to do with browser history if you have tracking on.
Maybe.
So, I don't know. I think it depends on the website as well. Because, like, in a way, RSBANDB is a bit of a niche website.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely
like, the only RuneScape-related ads you need are for RuneScape.
But even then, those probably don't make much sense on our website.
No, so, like, what you would have is, like, cake games that are similar, maybe? But like people, I don't know. Are there really ads that would be sensible on RSBNB? Maybe like generic tech ones.
Yeah,
But
perhaps.
you can't really get that out of the context of the website. So
yeah, could just be general website ads. But hey, funny nonetheless. Then there's also Pernasius' strategy of how he would handle Dimension of the Damned. Huh, that's very interesting. And
yeah, so
you think that's okay? Because I mean, if you're provoking something and they can't get to you and you're safe spotting, is that as designed?
I mean, it's. Let's be honest, Shane. For how long haven't you been able to be behind a fence, like in Drano jail, and just range the guards outside? I mean, it's an identity even for the game.
True.
Safe spot.
True.
But
Champions
really,
Guild chickens.
Don't you want it to be killing those other players while you're safe spotting, so you get the points and they're dying and you move
That's
up
true
in the
finale.
Yeah, but at the same time, I still think it's a little bit too much, 1 versus 1. I mean, community.
But
it'd be good if you could go in as a team of 3.
Oh, that might be fun. But also, I mean, this is, you're fighting for all the marbles, so shouldn't you want to try and force your teammates to die?
Okay, that's
the people
cool.
in 1,000?
That's evil.
That's what I'd do if I was there.
Me too. Oh. I'd be throwing them to the wolves and saving myself. Much like I would if there was a real zombie apocalypse. All right, man, I'm throwing you to them. I'll just hamstring you so I can run faster.
And that's in reality what Dimension of the Damned probably should have come down to, but it really did not. So, I don't think there's much else to be said there.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to episode 644, Divination Disco. We had fun with that one.
Yeah.
Here's my describing of 5 stages of RuneScape trolls. We need to spend some time and go through these documents and do a specialized segment on these, because if you look through the masterwork items, it'll say total time for sword, including materials, is 5,057 minutes. Total time per sword, assuming you purchase filigree, which is a finishing item, is 457 minutes. So it's going to take a long time to make. And you can see where they're going with this. They're aiming to have something that is very profitable at the end, but really bad for XP. So it'll be interesting to see if this makes it into the final game, because I have a hunch that we could potentially see people start to complain if they actually see these and see their people are going to be able to make tier 92 weapons and armor without doing PVM. I better complain. I better start a writing campaign. I better riot World 66. I better start shitposting on the shithole and get this not to happen.
I'm just laughing, but at the same time I'm realizing how close to the truth it actually is.
Hey, I've been around the street numerous times. I know that's the truth. That is the truth. That's the way it's going to go if this gets out there, if people read these. That's kind of true, isn't it? That sometimes you end up with a situation where it just follows the known trajectory for problems like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And then in that case, Jagger should have the courage and say, yeah, but that's how it's going to be because that's the best for the game.
Yeah. And that's what we have talked about many times on the show, courage. And, the courage is lit, or as we talked about with the Apple headphone case as well. It's kind of unfortunate that it has to come down to the community versus Jagex and us caught in the middle somewhere. So.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, also on 644, we were talking about divination disco, and of course that means the various colors that ended up with the divination rifts. But also, this was Tycho's last episode, and he had a very good question for us at the end of it.
And what more should I say? Oh yeah, have I received any fan mail?
You have... I haven't received. I always receive comments that are episodes are great. But...
No fan mail?
I have not received any comments on co-host selection in a couple of months. But I think you guys all do great. That's why I pick you guys, because if you guys didn't do great, I wouldn't have you on the show. He sounded so disappointed when there was no fan mail.
Well, I never got fan mail, and I've been on the show for like quite a few episodes. So it's maybe the listeners should just send more fan mail.
Yeah, they could do that.
They could like make a drawing of me or something doing like strength training. I would love that.
You would love that.
I would love that, even if it's just a stick man or something. I don't care the quality. But just a note of appreciation would be so cool for us.
Though, to be fair, I do get messages. I normally get, 2 to 3 messages a week from various people that they like this episode, they like that episode, we did something really well. So even if it might not be directly at you guys, it is towards the entire show as itself that they do like what we are doing. And that's something I would like all of you co-hosts to know out there, is that, yes, we do. I do like what you guys do. The listeners like what you guys do.
And it's sometimes you have these episodes, and when you're done with it, you just know you put down a good episode.
Yeah.
Like, I have had episodes, and I felt so great afterwards, because it was...
You just have a feeling.
Yeah, and doesn't happen every time. I think even the listeners will find one episode better than the other, but I think all of them are good. But sometimes they're just great.
Yep. And if anyone out there is ever wanting someone to receive a specific form of fan mail, you can always send that to me, and I will forward it on directly to that person in question. And even if you told me to, I would keep it secret and not tell anyone that it came in. So,
wow.
I mean, secret that like if they wanted to send it in an undisclosed form and they didn't want me to read it for some reason or something like that, So. All right.
That would be an interesting bit of fan mail.
Yeah, there were days in the past where people liked the other co-hosts more than me.
Oh.
Yeah. But
why would they do that?
I don't know. I think it had something to do with the other co-hosts on the show. But anyways, episode 645, Trekkie guested on. That's when we got the updated Revolution system in game, and we talked a bit about, or rather, he had an idea of how he should be introduced to the podcast. Many, many years. I think since RS Classic, but I'm belaboring the point right now. Trekkie is here this week. Welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to breathe.
It's great for dramatic effect. Thank you. So,
hey, guys. Yes, it's your fellow agent.
Okay. I didn't think of introducing you that way, but if that's how you want to introduce yourself, that is perfectly fine with me here at RSBANDB.
And I'm your only agent.
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. But
Uh-huh. Unless you want the Australian girl back.
We're not going to talk about that. And you guys might be wondering what that's about, but that is a topic for another day, I believe.
I don't think that will ever be a topic for another day. At any rate, hi guys, Trekkie here. What's up?
Yeah, I just to clarify, it's nothing bad. There's nothing that is going to be a huge revelation here that might be insinuated. Everything is A-okay. It's just something from the very early days of RSBANDB.
Very early days.
Very early, yes.
It was before I was even a mod.
Yeah, there you go. So some people prefer to make their own introductions. I make introductions for some people, and the introductions that they make can lead into other things as well. In this case, particularly Australia. But I don't even know if it's time to talk about that right now.
Sure.
Oh, boy. Well, the simplest way I can put this is that once we had a member of RSBANDB Informer who was actually more than a member of RSBANDB Informer, a member of the RSBANDB moderating team who went off the deep end, let's say, and was from Australia and in the RSBANDB mod circles has simply been referred to as the Australian. and caused a great deal of strife for us within the actual moderating team back in the day, and was on the podcast at one point in the past before. And I think that's really all I can say without going into the depths of the details of that. But I think we've all had one or two like that in the past. So, yeah, that's that story finally explained, courtesy of Trekkie. All right, moving on to episode 647 now, where we had the combat pets and obscure drop rates. And this was another episode where I had a false start with the podcast. All right, let us begin then in 3, 2, 1. Why is my watch treating that as a force touch? That should not be a force touch.
The force is strong with you, my son.
God. I have an Apple Watch.
10 out of 10.
In 3, 2, 1. So for anyone wondering, I run a counter, a simple, clock watch, stopwatch thing starting up the show, and I have been using an Apple Watch, and for some reason that day it decided to slow down, and the touching didn't work when I started off the timer on the show, so we had to restart the show there because normally it wasn't a clean start, and that's all there was to that one. But you don't maybe anticipate that being a problem, and that's the only time it's been a problem this year.
So Shane, maybe we should set up like a jar, and every time you have a false start, you have to put like $1 in the jar, and then at the end of the year, we all go out for a drink.
That would be $3 or $4 this year so far.
That's not too bad.
And
we'll have to come up with something else then. Maybe like a bond.
I'm not spending 20 million GP each time there's a false start.
Maybe you better not make any false starts anymore then.
Well, there's the challenge for 2018 then, I guess. I will hold myself to that, and we'll just have to see if any of those appear on next year's clip show. So, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Episode 648 saw the release of the Evil Dave quest, Evil Dave's Big Day Out. You were on this episode, Sirion, as was Sierra Pyro, and that resulted in one of the Clan Quest memes coming to life on this podcast. So here we are. Sirion, you good?
Yeah, I'm great.
All right then. Well, we'll see you next week, everyone, for another episode of RSBANDB Update.
Night, Sarah.
Good night, Sarah.
I'm not going to bed.
That was great. I had the exact same idea to end the show like that. Thank you. We didn't plan that.
You tricked me into responding to it. God damn it. Why is that a thing?
I don't know, but it is.
I don't know.
Doesn't it make you feel good that everyone tells you night-night every night?
Except that they do it hours before it's relevant.
Well, that's when they want to tuck you in.
Ew. I don't want Earth anywhere near my bed.
What about Santa?
Much less Santa.
Or Tycho.
Hey.
What about me?
None of you, but those two the most.
Tycho could read you bedtime stories with his great voice and accent. Yeah, that was really good. That was again. We didn't even talk about that.
That was not planned. That was not planned by me. But I planned to do the same thing at the end of the episode. You just got to it first.
Yeah. And you know what the fun thing is? It's still happening in our chat. Like every day, people wish.
You should probably explain how this started.
I really want to explain how it started, but the truth is, I have no idea. I think it was Earth that started just saying night Sarah, and then people just started tagging on, and now it happens every day. Like, I don't know. I want to know, but I don't know.
And, this is one of the great reasons that if you're looking for a clan in RuneScape and you enjoy questing, you should probably look at joining Clan Quest.
It's just so silly. We even came up with it, like, we have our own greetings and secret handshakes and stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
every single time somebody uses that greeting, there's like a new member in the chat, and I'm like, what is that? What the fuck are you talking about?
That's right.
And we're like, oh yeah, that's how we
I
greet
actually
each other.
started one of those greetings as a response to one of them, as a typo. Believe it or not.
Yeah, no, but yeah, so the greeting started as a typo, and then typos of that typo occur, and are now official greetings.
That's right.
Don't ask me how these things start to exist, but they do. And it's great.
That's right. And
I have started accidentally almost using that greeting in real life.
Oh
That's
boy.
awkward.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, we won't say what the greeting is. We'll leave that as a surprise.
You'll have to find out.
As a surprise. But yeah, you want to start the process, just guest in Clan Chat, Clan Quest, and someone will explain the process to you once you get there. But I think overall we have a pretty accommodating group of people. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on to episode 649, Tycho's last appearance for the year in an episode where we tasked ourselves to be pretty evil. So here we are.
At least we can wear red robes of evilness, of doom.
That is my paltry attempt at an evil laugh. Whoa. That was creepy. Thank you.
Halloween is over, but I couldn't just stop myself there.
Who do you think did it better?
I like everyone equally much. I'm not gonna pick.
That's a very diplomatic answer. Thank you. We'll let the listeners decide that one then.
That's how do you think I ended up in charge?
All right. Okay. I need you to brace yourself here.
Okay.
For this last clip. This last clip has to be prefaced by the fact that in the RSBANDB Discord there is a sound bot, and the sound bot has many different sounds on it. And some of the sounds are just absurd. And this last episode of the year, the lore special was being recorded with Colton. And we were using Discord because Discord itself handles connections better than Skype if you have a flaky connection. And I was down in my own channel doing the podcast with Colton, but there were people up above in another channel playing games with the soundbot there.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
Yeah, and the soundbot was able to play sounds, and it can be sent to various different channels to play sounds. And before we began, I made sure the permissions were correct, that the soundbot wasn't able to join my channel, and the soundbot had the proper permissions on it. But through some circumstance, through someone named Earth, he added the podcaster role to the soundbot before I began the podcast. And then this happened during the lore podcast with Colton. Brace yourselves, folks.
He bought it from a guy basically who stole the Staff of Armadil, knowing that it was a very valuable weapon, and selling it to Zamorak. And you all right there?
Excuse me. Excuse
what
me.
Happened?
Excuse me.
What happened?
That was the soundbot. You guys are making Colton lose his dinner. Why did you do that? Make me editing notes for me. Who pressed that button? Who pressed that? Okay, it's not allowed to come back down there. We're talking about Zaros and Zamorak in the second age, and you get the...
What's up?
That is the RSBNB soundbot. I clearly made it have the permissions to not come down here, but one of those two up there put the permissions on it and sent it down here for that.
That has to be clip show. At least part of that. Oh gosh. Okay. Sorry, my sides. I literally thought you had been sick or something. I was concerned. I was just talking about Zamorak, and all of a sudden.
Okay.
All right, where were we?
You were just talking about the Zamarakian revolt.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I feel for your editing notes, but that was great.
Believe me, that is going to be something very hard to pull out and edit. It's going to take a little bit of time. But hey, I mean, that I think could ultimately perhaps be clip of the year.
Yeah, I think it might have to be. That was pretty solid, actually.
And as you can tell, Colton I was doing the podcast with. You probably heard Earth in there as well. I suspect it was him, but it could have been anyone at that point.
You can check the audit log.
No, I mean, I know it was him who changed the permissions. I just don't know who played the sound because we don't have access. I don't have access to the logging for that right now. So, but that's what a day is like in the RSBANDB Discord, folks. Especially, later in the evening. It's almost like RSBANDB after dark, so to speak. But
yeah, usually I'm asleep by then. So.
Yeah. I think the only time you were able to come in and join in on our shenanigans is when you were in the US that time and you came to see everyone. But aside from that,
yeah, I was so jet lagged then, though.
You probably don't even remember it.
I do remember it, but not much of it, basically.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That's clip. That is probably clip of the year, but of course, you listeners are entitled to make your own clip of the year out of any of the various 56 clips we had on this episode. That's 2 hours of enjoyment pulled out of this year's RSBANDB update episodes. There's really only one thing to do before we say goodbye for 2017, and that's to do our picks of the year. Now, pick of the year has a stipulation on it, and that stipulation is that it has to have been pick of the week on one of the other episodes of the podcast this year. So we're going to do that right now. And would you like to start us off with that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to pick one of the picks that I picked myself. And it was actually followed up by, I forgot who it was.
Jeff.
Somebody else.
Jeff did. Jeff did the expansion in July.
Jeff did the expansion, yeah. So my pick of the year is going to be the new Zelda game, Breath of the Wild. When I picked it, I hadn't been able to play that much yet. Life has been busy, so I still haven't finished it. Yeah, shame on me, I know. But every single time I've sat down for the game, I've enjoyed it. And I think it is just a great example of how a game can not only meet, but maybe even surpass its expectations in 2017. And also be... I mean, there are some technical problems with it. Like, I get frame drops. That is something you would not expect. But... well, it is what it is. But like in terms of gameplay, it does so many smart things. It's mechanically so solid. It takes all the good things, all the developments, all the revolutions we had in game design, and then it takes the original Zelda formula, which is completely open world, and just puts you there and is like, all right, get the Triforce and defeat Ganon. That's your mission. And that is what this game does as well. There's like a short introductory section, section, and after that it's like, okay, now your goal is defeat Ganon, and however you want to get there, that's up to you. You get a few pointers about how you can get stronger and how you can get like make it easier to do, but like it's completely up to you. And that is like a proper open world game like that. I think there is no game out there that does it so well as Breath of the Wild. So both from like a personal enjoyment point of view, as from like someone who really appreciates game mechanics, I think it is maybe the biggest surprise of the year because I hadn't expected much from it. But also it just shows that these games still come out every now and then. And I'm in a way I'm a bit sad it's a Nintendo exclusive because I would love more people to play it.
Yeah.
But I really think it's a really good game.
Yeah, and you're playing it on the Wii U, right? Not the Switch.
I am playing it on the Wii U, which is, I mean, this is part of my frustration. It clearly hasn't been designed for the Wii U. Like the Wii U's main feature is the gamepad you use, and in a lot of the like Zelda HD reworks that came out for the Wii U, the gamepad is actually used for things like inventory management, which is so convenient and works so well. Like that is using your console to the best ability. And then you get Breath of the Wild, and the only thing you can do on the gamepad is you can tap on it, and it will just play the game on your gamepad. That's all it does. And that is just such a missed opportunity. I get why they did it, but like, and then there's like the technical limitations. Like there's frame drops even on the Switch. If you play it there, there's frame drops. So it's not a perfect game. Like the inventory management is not great. Like technically it could be better, but in the end it's a feat to put down a solid open world game that also has a draw distance that is basically the entire world, which makes it feel like a true open world that you can explore. So I am able to forgive its faults and say it is my pick of the year. It surprised me, and it's something that I have truly been looking forward getting back to every time. And there is now the second DLC just released not too long ago, and both the DLC actually add like a whole bunch of new content to the game.
Excellent.
For a really reasonable price.
And that was
really
my next question.
Price.
What is the price of the DLC?
So you have to buy both of the DLC together, and I think that's $20 maybe. And that gives you like a whole bunch of side quests. It gives you a new original story. It gives you trials. The first one gives you a hero mode, which gives you like basically the entire game but in hard mode. So like the amount of content that's being added is massive. And I'm trying to look up how expensive the season pass is.
And the season pass is something that would get you the entire game and the DLC, right?
Yeah, it's $20. So like no. So you have to buy the game and you have to buy the DLC separately.
Okay.
So Nintendo is not known for its cheap games. Like even years after release, their big games will still almost be full price. So I mean, it is what it is. But like $20 for the amount of content you get, like compared to what you would expect for DLC,
right? Compared to modern DLC, modern microtransactions.
Like this gives you like a whole bunch of stuff that would normally, like there's little quests where you get like items from other games, like a little bits of fan service where you get like a certain outfit or like a helmet or whatever that could have been brought in the game as microtransactions, right? And people would have put money down for it, but instead they just put it in a DLC. So I don't always am fully positive about Nintendo's practices, but this game they handled really well in terms of like their earning model, and that just speaks for the game.
Excellent. And this, from what it sounds like, this is a classic Nintendo game in the fact that it is one of those games where you're not going to be done it in 4 or 5 or 6 hours of gameplay, as some of the really pitiful ones are these days. You're going to get hours and hours out of this.
I mean, I have dozens of hours in it now, and I did a large like most of the like story stuff, but like in terms of side quests, I am not even halfway probably, and I probably never will finish because I am just too impatient to do all the little side quests. But the world feels so rich. Every nook and cranny is filled with like a little puzzle. I miss the Zelda big dungeon feel in this game, but like I said, I can forgive its errors, and it is revolutionary in its own way, and I really hope it sort of pushes forward the open world genre.
Yeah, and if anything, is a good jumping off point, for future inspirations of games. Because you said it was not only good in this fact that it was a Zelda game, but also good in the fact that it pioneered game mechanics and the like.
Exactly, and that is how, the original Zelda game was pioneering, right? A lot of modern adventure games have been modeled based on the early game, and I feel that this game can play that role. It takes mechanics, like the towers in Assassin's Creed, right? The eagle eye towers. Like it takes that mechanics and does it right, and it moves forward on the open world thing, and it does a lot of new things. And it's gonna be there's a certain amount of inertia that is in the game development world because it takes a year or two to make a game, but I'm pretty sure that certain concepts out of this game we will start seeing in other games, and that is a time I'm looking forward to. I'm not a huge fan of open world games per se, but just as a fan of the whole like game mechanics industry and all that stuff, I'm just gonna look at this and keep an eye on this and enjoy it.
And also hope for the best with Nintendo, because they're kind of still struggling.
Yeah, but that's the story for another day.
We'll see if that comes up in Tech News in 2018. Alrighty then, my pick of the year. Do we know what this is going to be? You know what it's going to be, but I'm going to give the listeners 5 seconds to think of what it's going to be. I think it's quite obvious going forward as to what the pick of the year ended up being, and where it's been and whatnot. So the pick of the year this week, or this year for me rather, is Star Trek Discovery. And
dun dun dun.
And there's a very good reason for this. There was a lot of talk when Discovery was first going to be arriving, if it would be like the 2009 Star Trek movie and beyond. That was, it was still Star Trek, but as we talked about in the Penguins in the Kelvin Timeline episode, it was still different, right? And there was a lot of question as to whether or not this would hit the right note and if it would do what it needed to do to cover the true essence of what is Star Trek. And we're roughly 2/3 away through the third season. It's on mid-season break right now. It comes back January 7th. And I think in general, the sentiment to the answer is yes. Yes, it does what it needs to do, and it hits all the right notes for what Star Trek is. And you've watched all the episodes thus far, so you can tell me, do you agree with me that that's the case?
Yes. Like, I think a lot of people sort of wanted the Next Generation 2.0, right?
Right.
Take that format, put it in modern graphics. It wouldn't have worked.
Set it 30 years after Voyager and pick up right there, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't have worked, I think. Like, TV has progressed, and in a way, that's what I wanted, right? I love TNG. I wanted more of that, but that's time's gone by. So,
yeah, we're in the era of serialized TV now, where an entire story is told over a season.
I think, like, there's things about Discovery I would like to see different. It's not perfect, but is any series ever perfect?
That's right.
It is at least an enjoyable show, and what it does so well is it is miles ahead of the terrible situation that is going on in Hollywood right now. If you look at movies, like, representation is terrible in a lot of movies, and Star Trek Discovery has put down a cast and a set of characters that is representative of quite a large portion of the population, I think.
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't feel forced and natural.
Exactly.
And that was when I saw some of the moments they put in there, I was so happy. Like, not because I myself feel more represented now, because I sit in that like fortunate group of not having that problem, but the fact that they did it, because we knew they would do it, but the fact that they did it in a way that felt right. And
it wasn't forced. It wasn't within the lines of you need to have this kind of person on there because they are this. You know, they are just there, and they are just in place because they have the qualifications to be there as it should be in the real world, right?
Exactly. And like they just do it so well. And this is what Star Trek always has been. Star Trek was always Star Trek was the first show that had a black woman on the show,
and a Japanese man, and a Russian,
and moreover had I think it was a white man and a black woman kissing. It was also the first time that was on TV. Yep. It had a black captain. It had a female captain. It had gender fluidness in Deep Space Nine. It had so many things that were back in the day unheard of in TV and media. They're now more mainstream, and they do the same thing. I don't want to give too much away, but like they have a representative cast. They have like we saw the first gay kiss on Star Trek in a way that made sense, right?
And like we said with other things, it just wasn't forced. It was there.
And you know, even if the story had been crap, which it wasn't, but even if that had been,
it took a while to build up, but we're in a really interesting spot with it right now.
Yes, it ticks all the boxes of Star Trek. It's so forward thinking, and it makes me so sad that this has to be named forward thinking, because this should be the standard of these days.
And not only forward thinking for society, but forward thinking for the industry.
And I think this is what makes streaming services so nice, because this is not the only series that does this well. There are so many more series, and the only thing they have in common, like most of them, is that they are generally streaming exclusive services. Series. Like, there's lots of Netflix originals that do representation really well.
Yeah. The unfortunate side is that the people in the US are in a really bad position because this is on CBS All Access. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the rest of the world gets it on Netflix, and we in Canada here actually are the only country to get it on TV because it is produced and shot in Toronto.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I'm really happy. I think it's off to a great start. It has been renewed for a second season.
Yes.
And you know, this is going to be one of those series I'm going to keep track of. Like, I want the next season to be here already.
Definitely,
like yesterday.
And
now.
And you know what's really interesting is that we went into this thinking that, you know, it's Star Trek. Let's just be thankful that Star Trek is on TV, right? Mm-hmm. But we got so much more, because I think it's fair to call it a cross between the original series and Deep Space Nine, except made modern.
Mm-hmm.
The original series in the stories it tries to tell, but Deep Space Nine in the tone put together.
I think it takes a little bit from every Star Trek we have seen in the past. Yeah. I think it takes a bit from everything. I think you can recognize elements of all of them, and that is really impressive. Like, the expectations were so incredibly high, and there are certain themes that this Star Trek is maybe not. Like, I know, because like the Discovery has sort of polarized the Star
fan
Trek
base,
community.
Yes. One great example of this is that the first swear word was ever said on Star Trek. There was a word. The young woman said, "That's so fucking cool." That was never on Star Trek before.
And again, it didn't bother me because it was so natural.
Right.
And because it's so uncommon, it had exactly the effect it should have had.
And when you think about what they were talking about, it really was neat.
And like there are themes in there that are so dark that could only have been addressed with a mature rating. Like it does get mature or teen, I don't know. But like it's not a family friendly show anymore, and in a way that is sad. But
it's something. It's like Star Trek has always been something you can pass on to your kids, but maybe this one is something you pass on to your teenagers. I don't know.
Exactly.
I was trying to think, like there are other creepy Star Trek episodes. You remember the episode of Next Generation in the cargo bay with the corpses, and they're trying to figure out what was going on with that ship, and it's causing them to all hallucinate. That was a pretty creepy episode at the time.
Like I never liked the creepy episodes, and yet it didn't bother me in Discovery. So again, that is something they improved over time.
Yeah.
But yeah. Again, I think this is the same as my pick of the year. Like it has its faults, but they're all faults we can forgive. And because a TV series or a streaming series, I should say, is a ongoing thing, it can evolve. And if you look at all the first seasons of Star Trek, like the first season is never the best season.
Yep. But
and
if you compare this with other ones, this is looking pretty good.
Yeah, but imagine this even better. Like, it has now been out in front of the fan base. The fan base is really passionate, so they had things to say about
there's a saying that no one hates Star Trek more than Star Trek fans.
Exactly. So it now went out. They now gathered the feedback of the Star Trek fans, and they can work with that. They can take that into account for season 2.
Right. And that's something I think that would have saved Enterprise back in the day, in 2004, 2005, because we didn't have, like, we had the internet, but we had online discussion forums, but it wasn't easy to talk to the producers because they would have to go to that specific discussion forum, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if people want to talk to producers, you just get a bunch of people to @message the producers or the directors for a certain episode, and voila, there's your feedback done via Twitter. Mm-hmm. So it's a different world that happens with too, and I think this is where Star Trek needs to be, because it's always about the stories and where you're going. It's not about the flashy lights of the adventures, or sorry, it is about the adventures. It's not about the flashy lights of the space battles. It's how you get there and what the central core theme and messaging is.
But the flashy lights and space battles do make it a lot nicer.
They really did a good job with that for Discovery, even though there were only a few of them. So, and even the ship designs itself, people were really questioning that when the first previews came out. So, all in all, really nice. So. That is Star Trek Discovery, pick of the year for me. If you live in the U.S., unfortunately, it's on CBS All Access. I think you can get a free trial for that if you wanted to catch up with it, and then subscribe for when it comes back in January. But if you're in the rest of the world, you are in luck. Netflix. It releases every Sunday.
Like this is also one of the best deals. Like usually when you are in rest of world, and that includes fairly high profile countries like the UK,
Australia, New Zealand.
You have to wait months until shows become available. So yeah, like the deals they did for Star Trek Discovery, like it sucks a bit. You need CBS all time in the US, but for the rest of the world, this is a really sweet deal.
And the rumor is that as soon as the series aired and they saw the numbers, it was automatically going to be reviewed, because the amount of people watching on Netflix for the first few episodes paid for the series.
Oh, wow.
And in Canada, it surpassed live shows like The Voice and other sitcoms as well on Sunday evenings. So it did really well here, even on the TV channels. So
wow.
All in all, a really well-received show by Star Trek fans and the general public as well. So that's why it's pick of the year. All right, so that wraps up RSBANDB Update in 2017, your clip show with, lots of fun along the way. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We'll be back. I believe it is on, January 12th, give or take, because the first RS Update of the year is slated for January 8th, so we're taking a week off next week. But until then, thank you for listening, everyone, and thank you for being with us throughout all of 2017. And I must also say thank you to the hosts of this year. Sirion, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think I speak on behalf of all the listeners, even though I don't listen always, but sometimes I do, that you did a great job this year. And thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I've never been on the show more than last year, I think. So...
Thank you. And of course...
How long until you fully assimilate me? That's
going to be a good question.
Oh, dear.
Thank
I don't
you.
have time for that.
Yeah, thank you also to Mr. Bistro, Tanis, Tycho, Parnassius, the RR Man. I don't believe there's anyone else I forgot. I think that covers most of them. But if I forgot you, you're there. You were on the episode. So thank you to everyone who really helped out in producing this year's episodes of RSBANDB Update. Couldn't have been done without you, and definitely look more for that collaborative nature coming in 2018. Thank you, everyone.
We have some exciting ideas.